Hey guys, it's Alex.
And Emily.
We are back with the second installment of Revit 2020. In this tutorial today, we're going to be doing part two. We're going to show you how to build a residential house. And this is what we will use for in-class exercise one. So as you can see on screen, this is the completed model of the house that we're going to go through today. We're going to try to build the majority of the house and then show some of the more advanced techniques in another video to come. If you see here in our house, it's a more contemporary two-story residential house. It features a pool and a one-car garage. Um, Inside, we have two bedrooms and a flex space, and then a large open concept kitchen, living, and dining room. On our ground floor plan, you'll notice that we have a central stair and then one powder room. And then on the second floor, we have an additional two bathrooms, two bedrooms, and that flex space.
So some of these elements, again, we're going to show you in the third installation of these videos. But if we're just going to jump right into this and get started, we'll open up a new Revit project. Same way we showed in the first video, just project, architectural template, and then OK. So as Alex said, we do have two floors in this project, so we will need to create a third level. So we can do this just by opening up any of the elevation views. And we'll just copy level 2 and move it up 10 feet as that is the floor-to-floor height in our project. And just to be a little bit clear as we move throughout this, we are going to rename the levels so we have a clearer understanding of which is which. And we'll call this one the ground floor.
This could be a second floor.
Yeah. So whenever we start a project, it can be easier just to import the CAD file if you have one to start with. So we prepared that for you guys, make it a little bit easier. So in order to do this, we're going to go to the Insert tab. And we'll go ahead and import CAD.
So there's two different options to bring CAD files into your Revit model. We can either link the CAD file. So if you plan on making updates to your CAD file in the future, you are able to essentially just refresh the file to the link in AutoCAD. But in this case, since we know that our floor plans are pretty set, we're not going to be modifying them in the future. We're going to use the Import tab.
So we'll bring the ground floor plan in, and at the bottom, you'll see that we can go ahead and play with black and white and the colors. So if you have different colors in CAD with, red and blue, it's a lot easier just to bring them in as black into Revit. And the other thing we want to take a look at is the place at, and we have the ground floor level selected. So that'll work well in this view, and go ahead and click open. So now we have a CAD file in here and ready to actually start tracing it. We'll repeat this process for the second floor just so we're ready to go on that when we get to that floor. The other thing that's important to know about when you import the CAD files is that they do have a base point. So these CAD files are already set up to have the same base point. So they will be brought in and be placed at the same location in the file.
So I'm going to temporarily turn on underlay in the properties palette. By default, it should be on. So we'll want that on for now. We're on our second floor plan, but we're seeing what's below on the ground floor, and this is going to help us to quickly line up our two CAD floor plans. So since we created this in a similar version of Revit, it looks like they came in right on top of each other, which will oftentimes not be the case, but it looks like we get off easy today.
Whenever these CAD files are brought in, they will automatically be pinned, so that way you cannot move them. and adjust them. If they, for some reason, wouldn't be pinned, you should do so, just so that way you aren't accidentally moving them or bumping them as you begin modeling the project. So we'll go back to the ground floor. And the first step in modeling this is going to be to create a topo surface. So we'll go to the Massing and Site tab and do topo surface. And what we'll try and do is we'll just place 4 points in each of the corners of this line that we have here. They're going to have the default elevation set at 0, which is fine for this case. We'll show you an advanced way to create topo from contours at the future. So we place those 4 points, and we'll go ahead and click the check mark, and we'll call that project or that done. So now if you go into a 3D view, you'll see that we have a topo surface in there. Now, the next step is going to be to create a building pad, which will be underneath the built part of our project. And we'll just focus on the house for now. So you can find this setting.
I believe first with the topo surface in the plan view, let me just check here. So I opened our visibility graphics menu, which is the same for all views. So you'll notice that the topo surface was made, but it's not visible in this ground view. And by default, the floor plans do not show topography. So keyboard shortcut to bring up visibility graphics is by clicking the V letter twice. So we'll do VV, pull this up. And you'll notice this is the visibility of all the different types of elements we have in our model. So if we scroll down here to the bottom and check topography, we want to turn that on and then apply it and hit OK. So what that's going to do for us now is allow us to actually see that topography at that 0 grade.
Okay, perfect. So we'll go ahead and add the building pad now. This basically takes the topography and pushes it down to a certain height underneath your building. So you can find this under Massing and Site and then Building Pad. And depending on how many building pads you're going to have in the project, it might make sense to duplicate the family and create a new one, but we'll just have this type for now. So we can just start by tracing the footprint of our building. You can either do this by using just the basic line tool or by doing pick lines. In this case, it's probably easier just to trace the border quickly.
And an important note about building pads is that they can share edges, but they are not able to overlap. So there's going to be a number of portions of our building where we may want a building pad underneath, such as our portico space here, as well as the backyard where we have our patio and pool. We'd like these spaces to also have a building pad. I will most likely be placing a building pad at a different height than I want it for my building. So I'm probably just going to share these edges. But you have to be really careful when you snap your lines. If they overlap even the slightest bit, Revit will not let you click through. But you notice now we have our building pad around the perimeter. We'll go ahead and click OK on that. And that'll place a building pad in the topo surface. So if we go to our 3D view, you'll notice that we have a building pad right here, which you can grab by clicking the tab command. So want to grab that one. You'll see it says comes up as pad 1. So that's what's going to create the foundation for our building.
And then the next part of adjusting the topo is going to be to add a subregion. And what this allows you to do is not change the topography, but create a different material surface for the topo. So we'll do this for the driveway. And again, it's under the Massing and Site tab at the top. We'll just take this around the driveway and finish the sketch. So if we select that, you'll see in the properties that you can change the material. We'll get into a little bit more information about the materials in the future, but this is what the material browser looks like, and all of the library that Revit already has installed. Find something that...
for now, it looks like we don't have asphalt paving in here for our driveway. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place, let's do just a concrete cast in place gray will work for now as a placeholder. I'll go ahead and hit OK. So now that has a material to it. So in our 3D view, we are in the hidden line mode, but if we change that to shaded or consistent colors, we'll be able to tell that our topography by default has a earth tone, and then our driveway now has this concrete texture.
So now that we have the topo in our building or on our project, we're ready to start modeling the building. The first step for this is going to just be to draw the walls. In the first video, we just used the default, but in this project, we are going to have a couple of different thicknesses of walls, especially in exterior versus interior walls. So we can go ahead and create a wall and a new wall type.
And before we start that, I just want to change the graphics a little bit for these plans that we imported. So since from the other file that we had pocheted the walls in our view template, it might be a little difficult to see what is new content versus what's our CAD underlay plan. So I can go ahead and grab this CAD plan on the ground floor. I'm going to go ahead and right click and then go to override graphics and view by element. So this is a great way to change imported categories so that they will differ from the graphic style of your model and really help you to not confuse the two. So the first thing I like to do is to halftone, which just puts it at a 50% of color. So we can tell what's new wall versus old wall. And then under projection lines, I'm going to just go ahead and change these to solid. And then for now, I think maybe we'll try working in a red. And if we want to change that later, we can by going back in this menu. But red is a great way to be able to tell that it is not new content. So if you go ahead and accept, you can see that this is all of your stuff here. I don't love red, so let's try blue, see how that looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this again. I'm gonna override my graphics and view by element. I'm gonna change this color to a navy blue. See if that works a little better. I think I can see that a little better, so we'll work off of this.
Okay, so now we'll create walls. We'll go back to the architecture tab. And the first thing we'll do is, right now the basic 8-inch generic wall is selected. So we can start drawing them.
So I'm going to use one of these annotate tabs just to make sure that we're using the right wall type. So if I click on the outer face of the wall and then the inner face for this CAD plan, I can see that that's an 8-inch wall. You can use this for any element in the project. So if you're working off a CAD plan and you need to measure, let's say this sink, you'll know from front to back this sink is 1'9". So by using these annotate tabs and just checking your dimensions, you'll be sure that what you're starting with is the correct wall.
So we'll change the levels here and set it to go up to the second floor. So we're gonna have a 10-foot wall and we'll draw using finish face exterior. And the easiest way to do this is just kind of go around and trace the existing walls. And again, we can use the shift to show which side of that line the wall will be oriented. We can show you in a future video how we'll change the layout and the layers of this wall. So it's a little bit more than just a generic wall. So now we'll have the exterior walls in there, which is great. But as you can see, some of the interior walls are a little bit thinner. This would make sense as that's how it is in the real world. So we'll go back to the wall after we measure them. So we have a 4 7/8 inch walls, which is another one of the defaults that Revit creates for us. So we'll scroll down and it'll be the interior 4 7/8 inch partition wall that we can just use for this. And again, we'll just trace all of these walls that are on the given CAD plan.
So sometimes snapping to walls is a little difficult, so you can always use that tab. So if you've got a couple different lines here, you can use tab to kind of shift around and grab that right selection point to make sure you're following your underlay correctly. So every time I place a wall, I'm clicking, and once it places, I hit escape to then move to my next part, using that shift tool to reflect the walls. Looks like I have just one more here. So right here, we're gonna have a big opening in between the living room and kitchen. So you could definitely draw a wall going the full length of that. But the other option is just to draw two walls, and then the ceiling will essentially just bisect the room, since we will not have a bulkhead in this area. So we should be good with just that.
All right, so we have all of our walls drawn on the first floor. So now we're going to, I guess we'll check it out in 3D, see we assigned the walls to have the height of level 2, so nothing is going beyond that, which is good. And then the next step should be to go in and add the floor on the first floor. So the easiest way to do this, we'll just use the wood joist 10-inch wood finish, as this is what we use in the example project that we showed you to start with. So in sketch mode, you can again just trace it, or you can use pick lines to get these interior wall locations. This is usually a lot faster and a lot more accurate to use this tool, as it prevents you from bringing human error into it so much, where you might not perfectly align the wall, the line to the wall.
So what I'm doing here is I'm going around the powder room, the garage, and the laundry room, since we know we're going to use a different type of floor for those rooms. So I'm going to actually put the floor on the inside of the wall. May or may not be the way it's actually constructed. But in your three-dimensional views, when you sort of have a door opening, it's better to have the leading material be the one that goes into the space. I think we're looking good there. We have a completed line.
That is the one thing about sketch mode that I don't believe we mentioned. If you do not have a full and closed loop, it will not let you finish the sketch. Maybe just delete one of the lines.
So
So
I'm
if we
trying to
try and finish
finish.
this, it's going to give you an error message, and it will highlight the point where it shows that you're missing. So you can see there were two little orange circles there. So it told us exactly where we needed to close that loop at. So if we add that line back in, then and finish the sketch mode, then we've successfully added that floor. Again, floors need to be hosted to a level. So the default is just the floor that you're in. So it automatically chose the correct level to do that on.
So you'll see we have our floor right here. And this sort of mirage effect is because our building pad is intersecting with our floor. So if I go ahead and look at our floor here, I'm going to go under the edit type command. And I'm going to see that the default thickness for that is 10 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do, so these do not conflict and that they appear to be correct in section, is that I'm going to go ahead and grab my pad underneath the building, and I'm going to offset that by a -10 3/4 inches. And then what that's going to do for me is bring that pad directly underneath that floor. So now I have a nice finished floor, and there's no overlaps in 3D here. And then back on the ground floor, I'm going to go ahead and select the floor that we just made. And since this floor pattern is pretty dark, and it's kind of intersecting with a lot of our underlay lines. I'm going to override the graphics of that, making that halftone as well, just so that it doesn't appear as the primary focal point of the plan.
So the next step will be to create the two different floor types for the garage and for the powder and laundry room. So we can just start with a default and go ahead and start drawing the concrete for the garage. Again, done in the exact same way as everything else.
It looks like all our walls or all our lines are closed, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. Then I'm going to try to grab it with the tab command. I'm going to right click on that and then override that to be a halftone display as well.
And then the last step should just be to add the floor for the powder in the laundry room. Again, we'll need to use a different floor type.
So for this one, I can use a rectangle. It's really simple. Go ahead and click and accept. And for this as well, we're going to override the graphic.
Okay, so now all of our walls and floors are in for the first floor. The next important thing to know is how to put some doors in the project. So just like everything else, there are multiple family types. For this, we'll just use the 36" by 84 to start. And you can just trace.
I think
we
use the
we use the
32.
32, yeah.
Yeah.
Try 30.
Yeah, so we go ahead and we should be able to measure the door here. So it looks like we're looking at a 30-inch door.
And as you can see, it'll make that cut in the wall and place in the exact same place as the underlay. And there it is in 3D as well.
So we have a number of different doors that we used here. This door that we use for the entry, I believe we use the same one to enter the laundry room. So I'm going to go ahead and hit shift a couple times to get that door positioned and then click in. For the foyer closet as well as the laundry room door into kitchen, we used a sliding pocket door to minimize the swing. So if we go to door and then look under our menu, you'll notice that the only type we have here is single flush. So to import another family from the Revit content library, we're going to go up to load family. You'll notice we're under United States Imperial. So that's making sure all our dimensions are in imperial instead of metric. We're going to go down to the doors category. You'll see a number of doors here, as well as some different doors for commercial purposes, residential, and some hardware. So I believe that our sliding pocket door is somewhere in the residential here. See if you can find it faster than me, Emily.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Maybe on our main screen here. I know that we will also need a garage door. So if you look at the couple different types of garage doors, we have a door overhead sectional. So I'll definitely want to grab that door and load that in as well so we have it. So all these doors are editable. It's good to start with a door that somewhat reflects what you want it to do. So sometimes there's some uneven doors. You'll notice a lot of these doors I'm clicking through now would have really nice application for commercial projects. And then in the residential folder, you have a lot of different doors that would work well for homes that feature a certain style. So you really just need to know what you're looking for. So I think this interior pocket 2 panel is probably what we're looking for. We'll see if that works for us. So I'll go ahead and open that. It's going to load in a number of different dimensions. So we'll just go ahead and load all of them in as we're not sure exactly what we may need. So by the look of it, it looks to be the right door. We'll go ahead and place this here, and you'll notice our pocket slide is towards the south end of our site, which is good. And then in the laundry room, we'll go ahead and place this door here. Pocketing into that wall would work great. Looks like I'm a little bit off, so I'm going to go ahead and use the align command and pick here and then here, and it's going to pull the entire door over to where it needs to go, which is a great quick feature for lining up elements in your project.
So we're going to need to load two additional door types, the garage door and then a double door as well.
We'd probably like to pick something that has a little bit of glass since we're in the back. Probably looking for something with a little more modern flair, so probably no muttons. I think this was the one that I might have used. And again, a lot of these things are editable, but it's always nice to start with something. So we'll go ahead and use that. That looks to be the right door. We can go and check that in 3D. So that'll definitely work for now. Doors are definitely one of the things that will change with this detail level. So by putting it on fine, you'll get the casings as well as some of the hardware. And you will not get that in the medium. And then the coarse even removes some more level of detail. So unless you're in a really big model, I always work in fine. I want to know what's going in my model and how it looks in real time. So now we need our garage door here. Use door overhead sectional. We'll load that in. Go back to the ground floor plan. Click door. And then select the proper size. And going to place that in the center here. So if we look underneath, we can see that I'm going to go grab this line and grab this line. And our dimension on here is 10 feet. I think the door we brought in is 8. So since this is a parametric family, it has different dimensions that you can modify right here in the properties palette. So under the width, we're going to go ahead and change this to 10 and hit apply. And then that's going to give us our proper width. We can go ahead and look at the 3D view. And looks like the door is reversed the wrong way. So I can go ahead and click it. You can do this in plan, or you can hit shift in 3D and it'll flip it to the other side. Now showing the proper side for the door.
So you need one more door into the powder room there. Probably be the same door type we used for the front door in the laundry.
So what I'm doing here is just trying to line up. Sometimes it doesn't always work. So typically your best bet for this is to use that align tool and go in and grab each one to make sure that they're going to hit as to the specifications of your CAD plan. Oftentimes you might work in CAD and just maybe only design the walls. So placing doors in Revit, you may decide that you want a consistent offset from your walls or some other different parameter to keep all of your doors consistent.
So now that we have all the walls and the doors in, the next step is going to be to create the rooms on this floor. So we are going to need to use some room separation lines from the previous video in the open living dining area. So we'll just go ahead and trace those and close those off to create those divisions. So now it will recognize everything as its own space, so we can start placing the rooms. And the default is to tag them on placement. So right now they're all just going to come up and say room as we go through and place them. which is great. Makes it a little bit easier when we're renaming them in a second. So the default family type for this is to have the room number show up. It's not really necessary in a project of this style, usually a little bit more. So you can edit the type of it and just get unselect the show room number and they will disappear. And then to rename them, you just click on them and type in the new name.
The other thing we did for our plans, you'll notice that this is about half the size of the text, is that we went into the room tag family. So I think we'll get into families a little bit more later on, but by double clicking or getting into this room tag, there's an edit family option. So if we go ahead and open that, this is essentially how all of these nested elements work in your Revit file. But since our plan is kind of small, that text looks really big. I'm just going to change this one since it's the only one we're using. In practice, you'd want to change the size of all of the text to make sure that it would still work. But we're just going to do the room name for now. So if we go to the edit type up here, you'll see we have a bold 1/8 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that type. And we're going to call it bold 16th. I think 16th of an inch is going to be a good size for text. And then we'll be able to just change that text right here to 1/16 of an inch and tell it OK. You'll notice it got smaller. The others didn't, but that's fine for now. So we're going to go ahead and load this into our project. We are in project 3. We'll hit OK. We want to overwrite the existing version and its parameter values to get that text size to change. So now all of the tags are going to update with that smaller text size. We'll go ahead and continue naming these. We certainly don't need to line them back up with where they were, but we can get them somewhat close. As eventually, once we build up enough content, we will hide the underlay plan and only use our new Revit content that we've created. So right now I'm moving just the room tag by selecting the room tag. You'll notice that each room has 2 lines if you hover in the correct area, like here in the garage. So this is the actual room. And then if we select here, that is our tag. Tags must be placed inside of rooms. If not, you can add a leader line and essentially pull these out. So in floor plans that may have smaller rooms, or it might just be too clustered to put it inside, you can also use leaders to pull them outwards. But for now, we're going to leave it right inside here.
So at this point, we have all of the basic components in on the first floor. So what we can go ahead and do is start to create and follow the same process for all the elements on the second floor. For this, it's probably going to be best to turn the underlay off just so we can only see what is on the second floor, and as well as doing the override graphics in view to change the imported CAD file as well.
So we'll go halftone. We want to use solid lines, and then change the color to anything that you would like. I'm going to use an orange.
So we'll just start drawing the walls again, using the 8-inch generic for the exterior walls. It has automatically adjusted the constraints because it knows that you are on the second floor. So the base constraint is the second floor, and it's set to go up to the bottom of the roof, which is that upper level that we created. We'll just switch over and quickly model the interior walls as well.
When designing yourself not off of a CAD plan, you can use the grid technique that we used earlier, and really use those grids in plan to line up some of your walls, so that your structural walls will come from upper floors all the way down through the bottom. It's a great way to keep track of your model and make sure that your structure is following the design of the building. And then here next to the stairs, since we built the model, I know what it is, but in plan it's kind of hard to tell, but this is actually a half wall that is only 3 feet tall. So if we go ahead and place it here, it'll work. But with the way that the stair engages with this particular wall, and since it does not go all the way up to the roof, we're going to go back down to the ground level. We're going to grab this wall that only goes up to the second floor, and we're going to want to make it go 3 feet higher to be a half wall. So for this top offset, I want to offset it 3 feet past the second level. So I'm going to go ahead and modify this to be 3 feet and click apply. And then now on our second floor, you'll notice if we turn thin lines off, it's not cutting through because it's not at the correct cut plane height, which in Revit it's default at 4'5", 4.5 feet, 4'6", but you'll notice that the wall goes up 3 feet on this floor. So in plan, it's now shown correctly.
So the next step for this can just be to go ahead and add the floors the same way we did for the ground level, using the same floor types as we did on that level as well. You'll notice that we do have an open to below level on this floor over by the stairs, which we'll model after we complete this. But we'll just go ahead and leave this open and create the hole in the floor now.
So now I'm done drawing that, I'm just going to check my lines. Since I want this wood floor to be continuous to the threshold of the bathroom, that's why I'm drawing it on the inside of the walls. Same thing on the ensuite bathroom here. Looks like this one is off a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and use that align tool to grab the edge of, maybe this won't work because we're in edit mode, but I can move this and it should snap to where I want that to be. You'll notice it's not quite lined up with the stairs either, so I can go ahead and just drag this line and it should snap to where you need it to go. You can also click the line and then use the move tool to be a little more precise.
What's nice about that is it is adjusting the two lines that are connected to it as well. So you won't need to go back and adjust those after the fact.
So now it's going to ask us if we'd like to attach the walls that go up to the bottom of this floor. So sometimes it makes more sense to do this, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, I think it should work for all the floors affected because we don't go to any of the perimeter walls. The perimeter walls will want to be that full height so that they connect with the next perimeter wall, but all the interior walls will only go to the bottom of the deck. So we'll go ahead and say yes here, and I can show you later if you have some problems with this, how to fix it, but this should be okay for the most part. So there might be a wall that's intersecting. I'll just say okay, see what happens. If we look in the 3D, so it looks like the perimeter walls decided to attach to the bottom of that floor. So if we didn't attach those targets, we can do earlier what I was showing you, where you select something and then you attach the top to the next thing. But so for this, I'm just going to go ahead and select my perimeter walls, essentially just to fix what I just did. So this will be all of our 8-inch exterior walls. You'll notice our interior walls are going up to that the bottom of that floor there. But with these ones, I want them to go up to the second floor, and I want to detach the top from hitting the floor. So with all these walls selected, let's see, what warning am I getting here? Okay, so I want to detach the target. So the warning that I got was for all 7 walls as not actually physically touching the floor, but I was trying to force them to attach. So this definitely speaks to the reason why you always want to check out what your warnings are saying in Revit. Oftentimes they're just trying to help you so that your model will stay a little cleaner and you won't have problems in the end.
Another way that we probably could have avoided this was just to make the exterior walls be the full height of the building. So we could have made their base constraint the ground floor, and we could have made their top constraint the bottom of the steel. But since not all of the exterior walls are continuous for the full height, that's why we decided to have them constrained per level. So we'll go ahead and add the doors. We shouldn't have to load any more doors at this point, as we've already brought them all in.
There are certainly many other doors that you can find online, as well as all Revit elements. A great site for that is revitcity.com. That's a place where any user in the world can submit a RFA file, which is a Revit family. And those are free for download as long as you have an account. There's many other sites, BIM Object, Turbo Squid, a lot of different things that have a lot of these RFA files. So you can find links to a lot of those on the Beehive website, or come and talk to us and we can point you in the right direction for those.
And then we need a pocket door there for the walk-in closet.
So as we were working on the design of this house, there were certain places where certain doors work and they don't work. So just be aware of when you are working on your own projects and designing that sometimes it's not always a swinging door. It's not always this type of door. And really, try to make it your own when you design. So it looks like we're still off just one there. Should be good.
And then if you want to go ahead and model the floor for the bathrooms.
So again, I said yes for attaching those walls. I probably modified my exterior again, but it was just this one. Now we are good to go.
So we can go ahead and create some room separation lines again and apply our rooms for this floor.
I believe that's the only 2 we need.
Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and hide those back out just so they're not confused in the plan. I think one of them missed, so we'll go back and show you how to fix that if that is to happen. So
that half wall there, Alex, is still attached to the floor, so it's not recognizing that as a boundary.
okay, so we'll go to our 3D view. So this one had gotten attached to the floor. So we're going to want to detach the top of that from this, which will allow it to go our full height that we'd like. So now in our second floor plan, this floor or this room now constrains to those room separators.
All right, now with all of those named, we should probably figure out how to get to the second floor and put a stair in this house. You're gonna want to do this by starting in the ground floor plan as opposed to the second floor. Um, and this you can find the stair command in the circulation under the architecture tab. You want to check your base levels here. Make sure that, and your top levels, make sure that they are to the correct. So they are in this case, and it's going to tell you the number of risers that you need. So in this case, we need to make room to have 18 steps. So you're going to start it's by drawing the run of the stair, and it'll give you, similarly to walls, an option to draw it from the center, which is what we're doing now, or from a right or left align. So we'll just use center and draw these first 3 stairs. And then continue drawing the run by selecting the midpoint of the stair from the CAD plan. And you can see there, it's telling you how many risers need to be created, and or how many have been created and how many are remaining. So
The other thing you'll notice is that I have automatic landing checked up top in my little green bar there. So as I draw the second one, you can see that the landing will be connecting these two. When we first drew these stairs, we had done some different things to make sure we aligned the runs with each other to make a really nice symmetrical stair. So if you're drawing one from scratch, it'll take a little bit more thought than we're showing now. But that would be shown for the first 2 flights and 1 landing. And then we'll continue to provide the remainder of the stairs. 3D, we can look at it and see it looks pretty good. Another way to get into your building for 3D, which is a great tool for modification. I'm going to go ahead and accept this stair since I think it's what I want with the green check. In my 3D view, I have an option under the properties palette under extents called section box. This is going to create a clipping plane in all 6 directions around my building. So what I'll be able to do here is pull in my one side till right before the stairs, and then I'll be able to rotate around the model and see inside all the geometry I just created. So this is a great way to be able to make sure that all of your stuff looks the way you want it to.
and stairs automatically apply railings to them, as you can see there, so you don't need to go back and add them manually. You can adjust the railing type to make it a little bit more interesting.
You can certainly load handrails, handrail families from any of the websites we were talking about earlier. And not using the Revit railings is a really great way to set your projects apart. As anyone that's been in this field will recognize these and probably not like them very much. So. We'll use a nice pipe for now.
Alrighty, so the next thing that we want to do, we can go ahead and hide this floor plan in view as well. Is we're going to go ahead and create the roof on this. When we first showed you the finished model, it looked a little bit complex, a little bit more challenging than the first one we showed you, but it's not too hard, so we'll get started on it. Go ahead and select the roof type that we'd like to use. We'll just stick with generic for this. And we're going to host it to the bottom of the roof. And then we can start by drawing the footprint. So for this one, we are going to need 2 different roofs, one over the northern part of our plan, and then one cathedral type ceiling roof for the master bedroom.
So I can go ahead and switch back to our finished model to show you guys what this will look like when you're finished. So essentially we have a primary roof in the back here. And you'll notice that that joins in with a roof that only serves the master bedroom. So essentially we're doing this for a couple of reasons. We'd like all of the water on the roof to be able to shed directly into our gutter system here. So all of our troughs are continuous and we have no place for water to actually collect, which is great. And we also really wanted that cathedral ceiling in that master bedroom. Whereas if you notice I select on this other roof, once we would trim down these walls, we could actually create sort of a conditioned attic space. But all the other spaces on the second floor would have the traditional ceiling height as opposed to a more cathedral-like ceiling. Cool. Jump back into our other model. The best way to do that when you have two models open is to use the switch windows command all the way at the top. So if I click on that, you'll notice I still have my room tag family open from earlier. I have the project 3, which is what I'm working in for the demo now. And then I have the finished model, which I'm in right now, that shows the check mark. So I'm going to jump back into project 3.
So we'll start by drawing the bigger portion of the roof, and so we'll take probably a little bit of work to get the angles right that we need for that join between those two roofs to work. And we'll need to make sure that all of the defined slope options are correct as well.
So right now we want all of these roofs to slope up so that they intersect on top. So I think all of these primary lines are going to have these slope functions selected. The one that we don't want selected is going to be this right portion of the master bedroom because we want that to pitch at a triangulated angle. So sometimes when you're getting started with this, it's a little difficult to think through, and oftentimes trial and error is the best way. As we were doing this, it took us a couple tries to get this to look the right way. So essentially, if I recall correctly, what we did was created an additional line just to be able to grab a center point because we want to basically center the connection of this roof so that it slopes down into this primary corner here. So I'm just going to use one of these roof lines as sort of a reference line, and we'll delete it here in a minute. I'm not sure exactly what height this will go to, so I think it might have been at a 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to go ahead and place a line here, and then starting in this one corner, I'm going to draw a 45-degree angle up to this line. Then from that, I'm going to go ahead and select that line and mirror it across my central axis. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete this line as well as this bottom line. And since I know I want this to vault, I'm not looking for them to define the slope. So I'm going to go ahead and select both of those and uncheck that box. And then go ahead and accept this sketch. Take a look at it. Let's see if I'm right. Maybe. What do you think, Emily?
Looks good.
That's what we're going for. So now we just need to complete our roof by drawing the front. And for this exercise, I think we're just going to leave the roof as it is. But you can certainly always pull these lines out in the roof edit mode in order to create overhangs on your building, depending on whether you're going to do a more flat roof design with a parapet or a roof like this that's going to shed water. Will kind of depend on whether or not you include those overhangs. We'll go back to our second floor here. We're going to draw a separate roof. I believe that you can only draw one roof per sketch.
Correct.
So we're going to change that base level again to the bottom of roof, which is one of those levels I defined at the beginning of the video. I'm going to use my sketch line here and pull this right up into that corner. And then I'm going to define my two bottom boundaries and bring this up to where it's going to hit right there on the left side. Then I know that I was drawing at a 45-degree angle, so I can essentially just draw two 45-degree angles. In this case, they're at 135.
You drew the first one at 35, not 45.
There we go. So where they intersect, I'm just going to go ahead and pull these back to kind of trim them in a little bit. Um, and then we want these to be vaulted. And then I can show you the difference whether or not we want this front one to be vaulted. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck define slope and accept the sketch. So if we go back to 3D mode, you'll notice that this front roof looks similar to the back slope, that they are identical. Using a 45-degree miter for this is probably one of the easiest ways. And you'll notice we still have this line here. This is a great opportunity to show one of the commands, join. So if I click join here and pick my two things, you'll notice that that line goes away. They are still independent elements, but you're not going to be able to visibly see that line just for the graphic purposes. So the other option here is if I select this small roof, I can edit the footprint in 3D. It'll just be right here. And I'm going to go and click that line and uncheck define slope because I've decided that I like the look of this better. The aesthetics, I want this roof to have a vaulted ceiling. And then I know that I want this wall to come up and connect here to close the gap. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the top of this wall to my roof. Then I believe this wall is one that we had problems with earlier. When we first built our model, may or may not work now. Let's go ahead and give it a shot, trying to attach this to the top. So it did work there. I think the first time we were working with this, the wall came a little bit too far into the building and actually past that roof. And since the whole wall wasn't able to attach to the roof, we had to pull it back and modify it slightly. But it looks like our roof is completely sealed now. The only thing I want to adjust here aesthetically is just bring the top of this down a slight bit. So if I go ahead and select the roof, I want to just modify a sub element if I am able to. Any idea why that's not coming up, Emily?
No. I mean, I believe the first time you just changed it by adjusting the slope from 912 to something else. We did
Yeah, we
12
can do
maybe.
it. We can do it right here as well. The only problem with that is if we go below here, we start to lose the 45-degree angle we want. But with certain roofs, it might be because of the slope elements. So I can show you how to do it here on the front roof. So we'll want a roof that's essentially at the second floor. So we'll go to there. This will be the roof over our little entry canopy. We'll go to architecture roof. Then I will use a square for this. And then I'm going to have this one slope away from the house, but I don't want to do that yet. So what I'm going to do is just make a perfectly flat roof by removing the slope factor on all of them. So in 3D, we have a perfectly flat roof here. If I click this here, since I have no slope factors, this is what I wanted to come up, which is this modify sub elements. This is a great way. When you click this, you're able to move the lines vertically, as well as add some different points and split lines, really allowing you to customize your roof. So with this particular one, I want this to shed water away from the house. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this up 2 feet in the back. So I'm getting a warning here about thickness because we have some shape editing, which is fine. I'm just looking to do this for the aesthetic. So once I'm good here, I can go ahead and just exit out and I'll have that nice roof there. I'm going to go ahead and do a similar smaller roof back here for the top of the breakfast nook. So I'm going to draw that one on the ground floor plan, just so I know where it's at since I turned off my underlay on that second floor. I'll just want to go to roof and then make sure that it's actually at the second floor. So it'll allow me to draw it on the ground floor, but it'll be placing it at the second floor. I'll use a rectangle for this as well. I think we did a simple shed roof on this one. So if I take off all my slope boundaries and then turn back to my 3D view, I can go ahead and just modify this one to the same as I did the front with 2 feet. And then hit escape out of that. And then I'll have these 2 walls. I should be able to attach them both to the roof. You'll notice it pulls up just the area that affects the roof, leaving the rest where it needs to be. And this one as well, since I have that small area there, go ahead and attach that to my roof as well.
Alrighty, so now that all of the roofs are on, we can go ahead and add some windows to our project. It's going to be very similar to the process of adding doors. I'll unhide this in view so that way we're able to see these windows locations a little bit better.
So the difficulty of adding things through a solid wall is that you don't really know where they're at now. So if you see when I click on this, you can see through and you can kind of see the outline of that window, but it definitely is a little more difficult to see. So there's definitely a few different workarounds for that. I think one of the easiest could be to measure your windows before you place the walls, or you may even be able to adjust the height of the underlay in order to see where you need to place those. So if I look at this, I can tell it's a fixed window, and I believe that I modified the size of it. So we can go ahead and place that in. So it looks like when I place this window, it's 36 by 72, but it's in the opposite dimension that I'd like. So what I can go and do is go into edit type here, and I can duplicate my window. And instead of 36 by 72, I'm gonna have it be 6 foot wide by 3 foot tall. And then the adjustments I'll have to do here is by modifying the height to 3 and the width to 6. And then I will hit OK. And then now I have my window here. It's on my second floor, but the sill height is only 1 foot. So since that's a 3 foot tall window, I'd like the sill height to be at 3 feet. You'll notice when I change that and hit apply, it'll now cut through the plan very nicely. So I have a similar window over here, so I can just go ahead and copy this straight down the wall. And now I have both of those windows in. The design of this house does not have any windows or penetrations on the sides, as this could be configurable for both a townhouse or a standalone. So we will just put them glazing on the north and south sides. So if we look here in the front, I'll just go ahead and hide this wall for a second so you guys can take a look at it. We have 2 small casement windows flanking a larger casement window in the center. So I'm gonna go ahead and unhide this wall again. And with the windows, I'm gonna pick that one that I just did, that 6 by 3. We're gonna wanna place that and alter our default sill height back to 3 feet. So you'll notice that I'm at 7'4" on both sides, so we're centered on our room. And then I'm gonna place this outward so that we have our sill lip and our glass is facing the outside. And then for the 2 other windows, I will actually just edit this one by duplicating it. And instead of 6 feet long, I will make it 18 inches. So we're gonna do 1.5 feet by 3 tall. Then we'll need to modify our width to 1.5 feet. So change that sill height back to 3. Going to place one on one side of the window. I'm going to adjust it to where I think I'd like it. That looks pretty good right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and mirror it across the center line of this window to ensure that we have the same spacing. If we go to our 3D view, you can see that that lines up quite nicely. And this wall, we have 3 more of those 18-inch windows. Since I already have them made, gonna place one in the center. So we're at 5'6" and 5'2". So gonna want that to be at 5'4". Then I'm gonna take this one, move it 2'6". Again, this can be somewhat arbitrary. Maybe I want it to line up with my staircase there. So I'll move it a little more to the left. Let's do a 3'4" works, and then I can go ahead and mirror that across my center window, giving me 3 nice windows there. Since these are a little higher, we probably want to bring some sun deeper into the building. You can choose whether or not you'd want that sill height to be 3, or if it made more sense to go up. Could look at that sill height later. Then in video 1, I showed you guys how to do annotation. So under detail line, in order to show this open to below space, we can create a detail line called overhead. If I just draw one here, you'll notice that it has dashes. So I can go ahead and place that directly in the corner of my staircase. So it looks like my staircase isn't quite lined up to where I need it to be to match my floor. It looks like it's in the wall a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and move that from here. I'm going to hold shift to allow it to move non-orthogonally, and then click here. You'll notice my stair now lines up really nicely with my floor. So then I can go take that detail line and place them in this open space to indicate that we have an open to below double height space. And then probably the last thing right here is to continue this pipe handrail. So this could be a solid wall, it could be a railing. For this, we'll use a railing. Railing must be a continuous line. So we'll go ahead and place that in the direct center. And then we'll bring it back into that wall just like that. And we're using the pipe handrail. And we'll hit OK. So then that'll make a new pipe handrail that perfectly lines up with our staircase. We can go ahead in our 3D view, use that section box to go ahead and check and see how all that looks inside. I'm going to pull it back a little bit more. You'll see our handrails match up very nicely. And then we have all of our interior components starting to go together. Emily, you think we're on to ceilings?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So one of the final things that you'll want to do in your project is to put that ceiling in. So there's a couple different options of generic ceilings that are imported. You can always add in a new type that you can create your own. But I'm just going to use gypsum wallboard on metal stud, as would probably be pretty conventional for a residential project. The height offset from the floor, I'm going to leave at 8 feet. And I'm going to want the ceiling to go all the way across all of my rooms on the second floor. And then on that ground floor, I'll want to make sure it's open where I have that double height space with a stair. So I think the best way to place ceilings is to draw them independently so that you are able to adjust the heights if needed. Some of the bedrooms may have taller ceilings, and depending on where some of your main duct runs and some other things, once you get into more systems design, may have to follow hallways that might have a lower bulkhead. So for now, if I go ahead, I can place a ceiling in each of these views. And since I'm in a floor plan, I can't see it, I'm getting a warning, but that's okay. So I'll go ahead and place in each of these. In the master bedroom, I'd like that vaulted ceiling. You could place a ceiling on a user's choice. And then in this flex space, since that's all double height on the first floor, I'll place a ceiling there as well. By default, we do have ceiling plans on the ground and second floor. So if we go to the second floor ceiling plan, and I'm just going to go into one of these ceilings real quick, go to edit type, and I'm going to look at the structure because I'm noticing that they're just blank. So I want to edit that. So if I look here, I have my different materials that make up the ceiling. So I have a metal stud as well as some gypsum wallboard. So my gypsum wallboard is my bottom finish, and I'd really like that to show a texture so I can tell which rooms actually have the ceilings in them or not. So if I go ahead and change that, I'm going to open my material palette, and under gypsum wallboard, if I go to under the graphics tab, I'm going to see that I can change the surface pattern for the foreground. So I'm going to modify this pattern to be gypsum plaster and click OK. And the color right now is black. And from experience, I know that this is very dark. So I'm going to just set this to a light gray tone, just so I'm aware that it's on those surfaces. And I'll go ahead and click OK. And once I'm back into the model, I can now see the texture pattern for these ceilings, which is going to help me to be able to eventually place lights or other elements that might be hosted on the ceilings. In this bedroom, there's a little bit of joining and cutting work that you would need to do to make the vaulted ceiling appear correct. I believe what we did in the last model, which this is not something that you guys will need to do during your in-class exercise, but I can just quickly show how it was done in this model. So if I turn on my section box and pull that over, you notice that I only vaulted it in the primary portion of the room. So wherever I hit the hallway, moving towards the walk-in closet, I brought down a partition wall there that then met flush with the other ceilings in all the other rooms on the second floor. So that's a great way to sort of cap it off. Again, it would be up to the design of the architect to figure out where you'd want that to stop and start. Then the ground floor will do the same thing with ceilings. So we want one in the garage, closet, bathroom, laundry. And then this one here, we're going to want to sketch the ceiling manually because we don't want it to go over here in the stair area. So just going to quickly sketch around these interior walls. And then I know that I will want a ceiling underneath this area of floor. So that's going to come out just to here. And then work itself back here to complete the kitchen. So now in our 3D view, we can use our section box again just to check our work. We can see that we have that ceiling hung at the appropriate height for the ground floor. We're maintaining our double height space. And the only thing we would need to do here is to put some small little partition walls just to sort of cap off the floor assembly here, which is something you can do for aesthetics, but isn't something that will show up in plan and can be easily modified in section. So I think we're just about done here on the second floor with everything except for some of our furniture systems. Does that make sense, Emily?
Yeah, we can go ahead and show them how to bring in some elements.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and walk us through that? I can follow.
So all of the furniture is considered a component. So if we click on component and we'll place a component, um, there is some basic stuff preloaded in every new Revit file, but as you can see, we don't have a bed. So we're going to load a family the same way that we loaded the new door types. And we'll navigate back out and we'll choose the furniture folder and navigate to whatever piece of furniture. So we're looking for a bed here. And then we'll just use a standard. So it brings in multiple options of a double, king, queen. We'll just pick king here to put in the master bedroom. And again, we'll use shift to change the orientation of this. And then you just click and place to that. Again, hosted to the level of the floor plan that you're in. So you'll do that with every piece of furniture that you want to bring in. Changing the type here to do queen and navigating. So we also have some tables and chairs to bring in as well. But it would be the exact same process for that. So we don't necessarily need to walk through every piece. We can show you the plumbing fixtures. They'll be a little bit different. They'll be in a folder, but they are also considered components. So these ones are located in the plumbing folder and then architectural. And then we'll use fixtures. So if we want to bring in the sink, we can go ahead and find whichever one we think is going to fit best in the bathrooms and then place it. To get out of placing it, you just hit escape the same way you will with any other command. And then tubs and showers are back in that folder as well. So bring in a toilet. Doesn't matter, you can bring in the 3D or the 2D version. Most of the time you're not going to be taking a view of a bathroom, so the 2D is usually fine. So these ones will want to be wall hosted, and you will have to apply them to a wall in order for them to go into the model. You can use your align tool to move that right up against the wall. And then we did put a shower as well into the ensuite bathroom, which we can be in the same folder. We'll bring in some casework, which we can use both in the bathrooms for the vanities as well as in the kitchen. And this will bring in multiple sizes of the casework, which we can adjust as needed. So as you can see, the casework is now hiding our sink. The casework is actually going to be taller than that, so we might need to go into our 3D view to take a look at that.
So you notice we have our tub here, which actually cuts in section. That's pretty funny. We have our toilet, and then we have our sink, which is sort of just floating in our piece of casework right here. So if we look at this unit here, we can see that our total height is 2'10.5". Typical countertops are often 1.5 inches thick. So we're gonna need to place a countertop and then make sure that our sink is mounted to that height. So if we go back to our second floor plan,
A countertop is a whole new component as well. It should still be in the casework folder and under countertops.
you see how many different options you have here. So we're going to use vanity countertop with square sinkhole, which should match what we were using. But again, we can always modify if it doesn't. It looks like it is the correct width of 4 feet. You'll notice we have a little bit of a backsplash there as well. So I'm actually going to set that back a little bit so that we hang correctly. And then our sink here, go ahead and check in 3D. So our countertop needs to be a little bit taller. So our height's 2'7". We're gonna go ahead and make that 3 feet. see if that works for us. So it looks to be right. And the sink as well. Counter height's 2'7", so we're going to modify that and be 3 feet. Then in plan, we're just going to need to line up these two things so that the opening of the sink aligns with the countertop. It looks like this sink is slightly different than our countertop. So I should be able to pull this in just a little bit. And then in 3D, you'll notice now we're pretty close. Might need to touch it up a little bit on the sides, but again, we're not going to be taking a 3D view of a bathroom, most likely. So we'll be looking at just lining up in plan for now. And so there's your options for pulling in the sides a little tighter. You'll notice now we have no gaps in our 3D view.
So the other area that will have a lot of casework will be in the kitchen, and that's where importing that casework that has all of the, we're going to add all the windows really quick.
Yeah, again, I'm gonna choose a different window that we used previously, just because it doesn't really matter what you use as long as you're understanding the process of how to modify and what the windows can look like with different types.
All right, so now we will place some casework. When we brought in the piece for the bathroom, that was just one of the options. So you can go back in and load whatever family type we decide is best. And we'll also be bringing in appliances for this area, which I believe is in specialty equipment.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and focus on appliances for now, and I can show you in the completed model some of the casework stuff, which will be optional for the in-class assignment, as long as you guys get an idea of and get comfortable with placing items in.
So we used a lot of the high end for ours. So we brought in a refrigerator, an oven, as well as a dishwasher.
I think we had our refrigerator placed right here. And we're going to want to remove the giant refrigerator label using edit type and then unchecking show label. So you'll see that all the appliances in Revit, a lot of them are pretty smart. So they actually know what it needs to run these different appliances, such as the different pipes and electrical hookups. So this is kind of the next level of Revit that is handled primarily by engineers. But if you notice up here in the options, we have all the different capabilities to connect it to power and create closed loop piping systems. So all stuff that lives in here, which is really one of the reasons why Revit is an industry leader for design and construction. So back in our 3D view, we can turn that section box on. I'll just pull into the living room a little bit. You'll see we have our fridge in there. And by working off the plan, you can continue to build up the rest of this model, which we have done in this one. So if you look at, I created a elevation of the interior, which can be done by going to view. And then you have to do it from a plan view, but so like on ground floor, I could do view, elevation, and then choose interior elevation. And then you can place that facing whatever wall you'd like to show and adjust that the same as you would for an exterior elevation of your building. So I've already created one here called kitchen casework. And you can see that this has the different elements that we already have placed in here with countertops, casework, and then the various appliances. And then from an interior view, you can see how we've then extended to create sort of an island area that has a dishwasher, a sink, some stools. And certainly areas like this can continue to develop and really only stop to the level of detail that you'd like to place in these models.
Alex, can you show them how to make an interior view quickly?
Yeah, I'm just gonna fix this floating TV. There we go, pretty close. So whenever you want to create any view of your project, whether it's inside or outside, you do it from a floor plan. So if we go to our ground floor plan, I'll show you one exterior and then one interior. So I'm gonna go ahead and go up to 3D view, under view, and then click camera. And then I'm gonna wanna place this camera somewhere out here so we really get the full effect of the building. I'm gonna click and then drag out the extent of my view. As you guys learned, probably back Jamie Cooper, your cone of vision is about 30 degrees to both sides. So Revit will do that by default when you import. So once you click that, it'll create a perspective that's actually real. So that's one of the benefits of Revit is that it does kind of constrain that if you want it to. So the other option is that you can expand your view out by dragging these so that you could see in all directions. Just be aware that that view is not something that would be realistic for a perspective. And then on the same thing inside, we can go ahead and create a secondary camera. I'll go ahead and place that in the corner of the living room, looking out over the kitchen and couch. And I want to drag this just to get to the extent of the walls. So if I only pull it this far, I won't be able to see the kitchen. So I need to just drag it out about that far. You see in my view, what I can do without distorting the image is just drag it vertically. But you'll notice if I go out really far to the right, things start to stretch and kind of feel a little too wide for the angle, but somewhere would be a good. And again, you have all your different visual styles down here. So something you can do for producing some quick views that look a little bit better. And I'm gonna go ahead and hide out my room separation lines in here as well, since I hadn't done that yet. So that they do not appear in the 3D views. We have one more right here. So what you can do here is go under the graphic display options. You can turn on your ambient shadows first, see how that looks. Oftentimes it's very dark depending on where your zoom is. And you can also cast shadows. Since we don't have a lot of windows in here, this probably isn't a project you'd want to use any of these on. But it would be nice for some other views. I can show you real quick what that looks like on the exterior with a hidden line. As I would say, this is probably a pretty common way to show your views in Revit, which just adds a little bit more depth to shade and shadow. And you can certainly cast your shadows on your building as well. And then by using the lighting tab, you can adjust the amount of sunlight you have as well as the intensity of the shadows. So I oftentimes like to turn those down just to kind of create a little bit of an ambient shadow on my building. And in here we got the Beetle. This is the only car that Revit has in its library for a vehicle, but you can certainly download other vehicles. Like I think I have a Porsche Cayenne here that appears only in 2D, but I downloaded that off a site. So it would appear both here and some things like east elevation. I'll be able to see that car for the scale of the house. Emily, I think we might be wrapping up with one of the only couple things left, might be materials.
Yeah,
Is there anything else we're missing from our model here?
I think everything else is good. Um, we could
We're definitely
also show the materials in the third video.
sure. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hide these out just to clean up our ground floor, hide out our CAD underlays real quick. So this is all the content we built, which looks pretty good for working on it for 45 minutes or so. And with time, you work way faster than this even. You'll notice we still have those lines there, so I can join those geometries to be continuous by using that join command. Um, I think I'll show you real quick at the driveway since this is a simple example for materials. Was just probably take about a minute on this. So material right now is a preloaded concrete cast in place material. So if I go and click this little button right here, I'm going to go ahead and edit that material. So this is the same for all components in Revit. So I'd like this to be asphalt. So I'm probably going to try to pick something that's similar to asphalt to get a good start. So might not be the right one, but we'll go ahead and pick asphalt shingle just because the material may be similar, but we certainly don't want the same patterns as a shingle. So with that, the first thing we'll want to do is come down here to this little button and duplicate the selected material. We're going to call this asphalt driveway. Make sure we keep our material library sorted, be able to find them easier. Now that we have the new material, we want to change the physical asset that it contains. So you see in the left here, it's still asphalt shingle. So what we want to do is come down here to the asset browser, and we're going to pick a new asset. The easiest way to go through this is to just start to type in what you're looking for. So if I type in asphalt, I should get a number of different options. And you'll notice there's a lot of different folders here. So the asphalt, I believe, is in the site work folder. So here we have a number of them here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that dark gray one. That's what I want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the asset by hitting this little button here. So this is going to put this asphalt in my material as opposed to the asphalt shingle. So when I exit out of that, I now have an asphalt driveway. And right here under appearance, it's telling me how many objects in my model are currently using this. So it's attributed right now to 0 objects since I haven't set it yet. In order to kind of always make sure that when you create a new material that it's not used by something else, I always like to duplicate this right here. Duplicating this asset will then now create a new line of material so that this asphalt driveway is the only material that's using asphalt dark gray. And this can get more tricky once you have a lot of materials that are very similar. But we'll just go ahead and duplicate that, and it's going to call it dark gray 1. Under graphics, we'll look and see that we have no cut patterns or surface patterns, and I'm fine with that for now because I don't think we need it. And under the shading, I'm going to say use render appearance. So this is going to give me the appearance of asphalt in my shaded view. So I'll go ahead and apply that. You'll notice that it'll update. It'll say okay. And then once we hit escape back in our view here, we're going to have that nice asphalt driveway. Same thing can be done with all of these things. So with the topo surface, just to replicate that same process one more time for you guys, we'll go to earth is a easy one to change in order to put grass in. So I'll go ahead and duplicate that selected material, and I'm going to call that grass. Then from there, I'm going to open up the asset editor, and I'm going to look under the physical assets, go to site work. Don't see it there, so we're going to go to the appearance library, site work. Here's where I got all my grasses here. I'm going to go ahead and pick a generic grass would work for now. So I'm going to replace that asset, close my window. And then up here, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the asset just to make sure that this new material is the only one using this. And under graphics, I don't want it to appear as brown dirt anymore, but I'd like to use the render appearance. So it'll select a nice green to represent that grass. And I will have no surface pattern on this. And go ahead and click apply and OK. And then now I have my grass, my driveway, and I can continue to work on my building, creating more and more of those building pads for outdoor features, as well as if topo surfaces if I'd like them to follow the contour, or subregions if I'd like them to follow the contour of the topo surface. Emily, I think we're just about wrapped up with the in-class video tutorial.
Yes.
Okay. So great, guys. Thanks for watching. So this will be the level of detail we'll be looking for the in-class assignment, just to get you guys acclimated to using Revit, so that you're ready to use it for your own projects going forward. So thanks for watching, and see you guys later.